Hello and welcome to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast, the first episode after the Formula One season opener. My name is Rob Peeters, and I definitely stayed up all night for the sake of watching the Formula 2 races that were at 6 in the morning. And if you know me at all, I don't sleep at night. I sleep during the day because I'm a night owl and I actually work at night anyway. So I just decided to say, to heck with it. Instead of going to bed at my normal 4 a.m., I just stayed up all the way till 6:30. And watched Formula 2 because I just missed it. I missed it that much. And if you've listened to the show enough, you know that Peter series are my thing. I love those. So it's pretty cool to have that back this week. But, Josh Roller is my co-host joining me here from Charlotte. Now, Josh, I'm certain that you did not stay up all night for the sake of F2 because you have a day job, like most normal people on my team. So you probably can't do that. But that's okay because we're blessed that we have it on ESPN3 here in the States. We can watch it on demand anytime. So that is totally okay. But anyway, seeing as it is still March at the time of this recording, because by the time you're listening to this, let's be honest, it's probably not going to be March anymore, because it's now March 31st, the time of this recording, so we're talking about this a little bit in advance, but I'm going to try and squeeze out as much women's history as possible from this podcast, and I'm very excited to get to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Josh, because he does have the Rollers Racing Report to do, because as always, as the last couple of years, I have been, podcasts, I have been doing Women's History Month profile, so now Josh is going to take it again this week. So Josh, before I hand it over to you, I think you have something you would like to say to everybody here.
I do. I've reflected a lot about the incident 1 week ago in the Xfinity Series, a little over 1 week ago in the Xfinity Series at Atlanta between Noah Gragson and Daniel Hemrick, and I'm talking about the incident when Gragson backed into Hemrick's car. So I did a lot more thinking. I did a lot more listening and reading, and I kind of came to the point where I gut reactioned it, and I came to the conclusion that maybe his actions weren't intentional, but they were at the very least, careless and sloppy, reckless, however you want to word it. That's how I put it into. So I a little careless, but I think it's easy for a lot of us to jump into the intentional view because of Gragson's history over the past year, and I think that's a lot why fueled it. So I think it's just kind of a lesson for myself and others, where let's review it and let's not come to conclusions so quickly. So I apologize to Noah, and I know he's probably not listening to this. Probably none of the people he's associates with to listen to this. But if it happens, I apologize to Noah for jumping on the gun so quickly. Rob, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say onto that, but if you don't, that's fine. If not, I can get into the racing report.
Well, obviously, I said a couple of things last week that I probably wish I hadn't said, and if I was, if I wasn't someone who wasn't so much like I don't want censorship, I probably would have edited it out of my own podcast, but I opted to leave it in there because, if anything, I should learn from some mistakes. So, I said something about Noah that I probably shouldn't have, and I apologize for that as well. But, I think both of us, we were caught up in the heat and everybody was arguing about it, especially, it was Monday. It was right after we were, we were both probably hot-headed a little bit, and I maybe saw some stuff, but said some stuff that I shouldn't have said, and to that I do apologize. But outside of that, I still stand by most of what I said about Noah. I still stand by. I wish that he would surround himself with maybe some different people that can maybe help him grow in a positive way. I still stand by that because I still think that's true. But outside of that, that's kind of where I fall on it, because I thought about it a lot last week too. So thanks for taking that time, Josh, to go ahead and do that. And I think now is a good time to jump into the racing report, because there was a pretty decent amount of news this weekend.
There were some pretty good pieces of news. Let's kick it off here with the Formula E. The Formula E and FIA have confirmed the next two race locations for the 2020-21 Formula E World Championship. On April 10th and 11th, the Rome E-Prix will be contested in the EUR neighborhood of Rome. Then 2 weeks later, on April 24th and 25th, the series will race in Valencia, Spain for the Valencia E-Prix. That race will be on the Circuit Ricardo Tormo, and will be the first Formula E race contested on a permanent circuit. So that's pretty big news there.
That's what I'm excited about, because I remember when Formula E first came around, they had a test at, I believe, Donington. And I got into it because of the test at Donington, because it was really cool to see him, run up through the hills of Donington and whatnot. But I'm really excited to see them back on a permanent circuit, because I understand Formula E wants to be sustainable street circuit racing, but they can put on, I'm certain of it, they can put on a good show at a permanent circuit. So I'm pretty excited to see that. Well, I should say they have kind of done that with the Mexico City E-Prix. It's not necessary. It's like a hybrid oval road course, street course, permanent. So it's weird. It's really interesting. I like it. But I'm going to be excited to see Formula E back on a permanent road course.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty excited for that. I think they test there, but like you mentioned, the majority of the races have been on, or all the races have been on street circuits, except for that one in Mexico City where it's a hybrid. IMSA and WEC news here. Per Racer, an email circulated by Sebring International Raceway General Manager Wayne Estes confirms that the intention is for the 2022 12 Hours of Sebring weekend to be accompanied by WEC's 1,000 Hours of Sebring, which has only run once, and that was back in 2019, and it was canceled as a result of COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021. Estes and his team at Sebring remain vigilant and optimistic that normalness will return next year, which will help the odds of this becoming a reality. So that's pretty exciting for sports car fans, whether you are a European sports car fan or here in America, you're a sports car fan. On to NASCAR, we have a few bullet points here. Virginia has loosened its COVID-19 restrictions, and we can expect the upcoming races at Martinsville Speedway and Richmond Raceway to have a capacity of 30%. The one race we ran at Richmond last year had no fans, and Martinsville had some fans for the penultimate race of the year, but it's good to see more fans in the stands at those two tracks. It's just been great to see more and more fans getting back in to watch these races. It definitely helps with the atmosphere, and it helps tracks make a little bit more money as well. The first ever Xfinity Series race under the lights at Martinsville, in the first 2021 Dash for Cash race, has a name. It's the Cookout 250. That race had been previously like just the Xfinity Night Race at Martinsville, and it's kind of like not even like a Martinsville 250. It's the Xfinity Night Race at Martinsville. But I digress. I just want to throw that out there because Cookout, I'm enjoying that food. Being down here for 14 months now, I have had my fair share of Cookout in that time. It is good food. If you're looking for something.
I was going to say, every time I hear about Cookout, or I think about Cookout, I think about that time we did a podcast while you had a bag of Cookout next to you.
Yes. I did that a couple of times.
Yes, you've done that a couple of times. And I don't blame you. I would do it too if it was that good. So
yeah. For everyone, including myself, this is including myself big time, who was very disappointed to have the qualifying races rained out this past weekend at Bristol, which meant Jessica Friesen wouldn't be in the truck race because she didn't have any owner's points. The truck hadn't made a start this year. Have no fear, she will attempt the Camping World Truck Series race at Knoxville Raceway in July. That's on July 9th. Once again, she'll be behind the wheel of the sister truck to her husband, Stuart Friesen, the number 62. So very excited to see that because we missed out, as you mentioned, last week, 2 weeks ago with Patty Moise, that, husband-wife racing has not happened in the truck series before. So we'll have another shot. Hopefully Mother Nature stays away from Knoxville.
That's my biggest hope.
Just for a few days. We also know Iowa has a lot of crops. Just for a few days, Mother Nature, stay away and don't give water to the plants those days. Anyways, I digress. Last point, 2 points here. 2 more throwbacks for NASCAR Throwback Weekend at Darlington this May have been released. First, you have Josh Berry running a throwback to replicate Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Budweiser MLB All-Star Game paint scheme from the 2001 Pepsi 400. Sponsorship will come from Tire Pros. And instead of a ball player being in front of the rear wheels, it'll be a drawing of Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. standing on top of Michael's car. The silhouette kind of, they're going to have like the uniforms painted similar, no logos, but just a color scheme on there. Very cool. Obviously, it won't be quite 20 years since Junior won that race, but it will be 20 years short of, 2 months short there. But still a very cool car. The second, now this one will excite NASCAR, Chase Elliott, and Alan Kawicki fans because Hooters is on the car for Chase Elliott at Darlington, and you're getting a 1992 Hooters throwback car that Alan Kawicki won the 1992 Winston Cup Championship with. We need this, and we've got it. So that excites me. I was pretty excited, and I kind of had the stay calm.
The two had in it. A lot of stuff I remember. Martin Truex obviously being the champion. Kyle Busch was a rookie that year as well. You had a lot of different, very interesting paint schemes, a lot of different driver combinations. You had some bushwhackers. You had some really young guys that were coming up at the time. You had some old guard that was still around. The old Busch Series transition period where it went from being, I consider the early 2000s to really be the big transition period of the Busch Series. Yeah. I'm sure it's not closed down. I'm sure they have the money on the facility to invest in safer barriers. And to my knowledge, that's the one thing that's keeping Speedway, which is basically a state away, and Las Vegas, which is basically a state
Phoenix
away.
Might be closer.
Phoenix, you'd have to drive south. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's closer. I'll say maybe.
Still, I mean, you're completely. There's a lot of race fans out there in Denver, and especially if Colorado National Speedway, which hosts ARCA Menards Series West races, and that's one of the more popular races on the circuit. It was a very popular truck race event in the back in the day. I don't know. I don't want to get too far away from it, but there's some really good tracks that the Busch Series went to back then that we should talk about again. But anyway, to the main point, Josh, you have a featured paint scheme from this 2004 NASCAR Busch Series that I think you want to talk about quite a bit, don't you?
Can you tell from what I wrote down?
Yeah, your enthusiasm just in this little paragraph, it shows me everything I need to know.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm choosing the number 21 Reese Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing, and this is seriously one of my favorite paint schemes ever in NASCAR, in any series. It's one of my favorites. Orange, full disclosure, is my favorite color and undoubtedly plays a role in why this selection here, but I just love this because when I first saw this car as a kid, I loved Reese's, still do. Right. So when I see this car, this is awesome, and I have been in love with it ever since. I remember 2005 Christmas, I got a 1/64th scale diecast. I believe it was from 05, but nonetheless, the schemes are similar, and I have them. Like, this car is so cool. Even as a 26-year-old, like, this car is so cool. It's back home in Indiana, but it's not here. Otherwise, I hold it up and show you for you. But the car was, like I said, base orange all the way around. Had these little yellowish orange swirls kind of scattered across the scheme. No particular order. The number was yellow on top and on the sides, but on the sides you had a Reese's cup behind the number, kind of fading, like zooming past. It was really, that's just a great touch. Whoever designed this car deserves a raise. Wherever they're working today, they deserve a raise. So Harvick and Clint Boyer, were the two drivers to run this car. So Harvick drove it at Rockingham, Las Vegas, Darlington, Bristol, Fontana, Richmond, Charlotte, Dover, Daytona, Chicagoland, New Hampshire, Bristol, Fontana, Richmond, Dover, Phoenix, Darlington. I went in order there. You heard a couple tracks there twice. He had a best start of 4th at Charlotte 1, Bristol 2, and Darlington 2. And he won at Las Vegas earlier in the season. That was back in March. And then Clinton Boyer drove the car at Texas. He drove it at all the cool tracks. He drove it at Texas, Nashville Superspeedway, Talladega, Gateway, Nazareth, Nashville Superspeedway, the second race there, Kentucky, Milwaukee Mile, Pikes Peak, IRP, Kansas, Memphis, Atlanta. If I'm a driver in 04, that's the schedule I want. If I'm driving,
I want that schedule.
That's awesome. This great calendar there. He had a best start. He first at Talladega, which again, we talk about, that was only one Talladega race for years in the Xfinity Series, and that was still in April at the time. He had a best finish at 3rd at Nashville 2 in June. Again, this is one of my favorite paint schemes of all time. I wish I'll go as far as say if I could drive any car just 80 miles an hour around a track, this will crack the top 5 of selections. Just saying.
I don't blame you on that one. I think that's a good pick. I always like that one too. I like the Reese's Cup. My favorite one was an old commercial from Kevin Harvick. where he's walking down the street eating a Reese's, and Tony Kanaan's walking down the street with a jar of caramel. And Harvick goes, Reese's. And Kanaan walking down the street with like a Bluetooth headset or something in his ear. Or maybe it was a cell phone at the time. I don't know. Both of them were on a cell phone or something. And he's walking down the street and he's just dipping his finger in this jar of caramel. And they come across, Kanaan and Harvick, they come across and they bump into each other. And Harvick they try to make it look accidental, but Harvick clearly just dips his Reese's in the caramel. And they go, you got your Reese's in my caramel. You got your caramel in my Reese's. And it's like, and then Harvick eats it. It was an advertisement for caramel Reese's. But I always remember that commercial as being just the most absurd, bizarre thing I'd ever seen. Who walks down the street with a jar of caramel? And why are you saying Tony Kanaan is a weird guy like this? I don't think Tony Kanaan's that weird that he walks down the street while talking on the cell phone with a jar of caramel in his hand.
Special type of weird, and I don't think Tony Kanaan hits that at all. That's good. I forgot about that commercial and I forgot about caramel Reese's. So Rob, thank you for reminding me.
It has lived rent free in my mind since it aired.
Oh man,
I have never forgotten that commercial because it's impossible to. It's the most bizarre, obscure thing I've ever seen. I don't even know if you could buy caramel Reese's anymore. But
I don't think they do. I don't think they. I don't. Not unless you want to buy one that's 15 years old. No.
No, I probably wouldn't want to do that.
No.
All right, let's talk about mine. I got a pick for you. How about this? I love one-offs. I love one-off schemes. I love schemes that are just obscure. So how about this? How about a paint scheme from 2004 that ran on a 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix body? What car could this be? Now, Pontiac had withdrawn from NASCAR by 2004, and even then, they had a new model of Grand Prix for 2003 that even Jeff Green ran for the Bruco team in 2004 because, some teams still ran Pontiacs in the Busch Series. You didn't really run them in the.
They used them up.
Yeah, exactly. You could run those bodies. They were still legal in the Busch Series. I think they were still legal in the Cup Series too, because I think Hermie Sadler ran a couple of races in a Pontiac and a Chevrolet a couple of times. This one was very interesting because I'm talking about this is the number 88 Mr. Clean Pontiac. Driven by Wally Dallenbach for Nemco Motorsports in the season opening race at Daytona. This is an obscure one-off paint scheme. Dallenbach came out of retirement briefly to race in the Busch Series opener in 2004 because it was an odd number year. NBC had the Daytona 500 rights, and so Wally relinquished his role in the broadcast booth to, I believe, Dale Jarrett. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. I didn't double-check it, but I'm pretty sure it was Dale Jarrett. While Wally promptly crashed out and finished 42nd because, It's Wally. I love him, but his NASCAR career leaves a lot to be desired. Let's be honest.
Fair statement.
But Wally Dallenbach is an absolute master in sports cars. He's still racing in sports cars, Trans Am stuff. So, and actually, I'm going to talk about the Trans Am series here later on. So, I'm excited for that. We don't talk about Trans Am very much. And they were at the Charlotte Roval a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
I don't know if you caught that, Josh, but
I knew they were there. I didn't catch any of it.
I didn't catch any of it either because I didn't think it was broadcast. But I thought it was really cool that they were racing there. But anyway, so this, despite its brief history, so keep in mind Wally literally crashed this car out pretty early in the race. He finished 42nd, and it's a very, very common race accident to see. But this car was likely an old Nemco super speedway car because Nemco's Busch program typically ran Pontiacs instead of the normal Chevrolets, the super speedway races in the early 2000s, and this was a common practice. A lot of cases, the Pontiac Grand Prix were just better at super speedways than the Chevrolet Monte Carlos at the time. A lot of teams felt this way, especially Nemco. You'd always see Joe Nemechek and Randy LaJoie run Pontiacs at Daytona and Talladega just because. They were fast cars, dude. They were always fast. Nemechek and LaJoie were always up at the front. And even one of these years when he hired Jeff Fuller, even Fuller was fast until he, reminded all of us that he's Jeff Fuller. I hate to be that guy, but let's be honest. Jeff Fuller was not exactly the most accomplished Busch Series driver of the time. You might know of him, but you know what I mean. But anyway, so this was featured. I'm going to talk about what the car looked like too, because this was a very interesting and beautiful paint scheme. Yes, Josh, it is a beautiful paint scheme. For a scheme that only ran once in 2004, this scheme easily, I would have run it many times before, but I don't know if Mr. Clean Auto Dry was even a thing prior to 2004. But so it had a blue base, and it has these neon green accents. So the front, so like you're looking at kind of like stripes and accent figures throughout the car, and they're neon green. The spoiler was even neon green, which actually made it stand out, especially in the draft, because I think, Josh, maybe you're looking at the picture now because I'm not right now, but maybe the top wicker bill was even, does that have a different color on it? Is that a neon green?
It doesn't, no. I wouldn't call it. It looks black.
It would have been better if they would have done that neon green. But anyway, and then you got the numbers, which were kind of like a light blue on the sides, but on the top you had neon green numbers, so that was pretty neat. As well, and it specifically advertised the Mr. Clean Auto Dry product, and the reason why is because it's totally different from most Mr. Clean paint schemes that we would see, especially coming along in the Busch Series later on. They evolved into a much different scheme that I still like, but this one was very interesting at the time, and the fact of the matter is it's so obscure. It's an old Nemco car that was at this time like 2 full seasons old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just entered for Wally Dallenbach, and he's quite literally riding around there in a car that looked so dated compared to all its competitors. I mean, it's the most obscure thing I've ever seen, and especially in that race in general, because I think it got rain delayed from Saturday on to like Monday, I think even. So that whole race was something else. So that's that for the featured paint scheme for this week. I think it's time to run into this week's winners, which we're going to take a look at here. Coming up first is the NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational. That was held on Bristol Dirt on Wednesday. That was kind of a preview to what we would end up seeing on Monday. I almost said Sunday. On Monday. William Byron won that. And then we move on to Formula One, which was in Bahrain. Lewis Hamilton scored his 96th career win in an absolute thrilling duel with Max Verstappen in the closing laps. And by the way, if you missed, I talked about Formula 2, obviously, if you missed this. Don't forget Formula 2 is running 3 races this week. It took me a minute to adjust to that because I was like, oh, okay, I got a race at 6:30 in the morning. But then I've also got another race at 12:40 in the afternoon on Saturday. Interesting. I forgot about that. But it's not that big of a deal. I promise you. Race 1, the sprint race number 1. So it was really weird. Instead of doing the feature race and the sprint race, qualifying for the feature race and inverting it, I still don't know how they do the first 2 races, how they do the grids on that. Like they qualified and then they reversed them, and then they reversed them back. I don't know. But the point is, Liam Lawson won race 1, Oscar Piastri won race 2, and Guan Yu Zhou won race 3. Oscar Piastri winning, not on debut in his second race, but the last year's Formula 3 champion, already winning in Formula 2, which is not surprising to anyone because this is something that typically does happen for Formula 3 champions quickly in Formula 2. But hey, I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did for Piastri. Of course, the rest of his weekend wasn't that great, but he did win the second sprint race. So good job to all 3 of those drivers. The Truck Series was finally ran its race on Bristol Dirt on Monday morning at noon, thankfully. Martin Truex Jr. won that and became the first another driver to win on all 3 National Series, which I didn't realize that Truex hadn't done that, but then I guess I saw how many Truck Series starts, and I said, oh, well, he's only got 2 prior truck starts, so I guess this doesn't surprise me that he hasn't won in all 3 yet, but now he has. So the 2017 Cup champion making waves and adding his name again to the history books. Then in the Cup Series was also on Bristol Dirt, and Joey Logano came out and won that in a thrilling race all over. Didn't expect Joey Logano to win that, but I think the race was unpredictable in many instances, so I guess an unpredictable winner was only natural. 7 races, 7 different winners, by the way. We still got that going on. I'm really excited about that. Let's move into top takeaways, because let's discuss the races from this weekend, because there were a lot of them, and there were some really good ones. So Formula 1 was pretty great, because it happened on Sunday, and we got really, really lucky in that, like, the NASCAR race gets called pretty much really early they decide, we're not even going to try this. And probably for the best, because I guess that ended up helping Formula One's ratings quite a bit, or it could have. Who knows? You started at noon. I mean, you're not at noon. It's 11 o'clock on a Sunday. I mean, that's ideal. I mean, yes, it's Bahrain time where it's like 9 o'clock in the evening, but for literally everybody else, that's prime. I mean, in Great Britain, you're starting it at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Over here, you're starting it at like 4 in the morning, or not 4, 11 in the morning, and it just worked out. I think I like having the season opener be at Bahrain in the nighttime. I understand a lot of people like the Australian Grand Prix being at night, but it's better to be awake at a decent hour to watch Formula One than having to stay up until like 11 o'clock to watch this opening race. Yeah, I just liked it. In that sense.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything else to add. I was just going to move on to the next feature. If you have something else to talk,
I was going to say that I think it helps to have, they want to grow the American market, right? I think it helps to have that first race of the year be at a good viewing time because Australia is is in the middle of the night, correct? When they run that?
Yeah, so Australia typically, they'll start the Grand Prix typically around like 1 or 2 in the afternoon Australia time, which typically, depending on your time zone, is going to roughly translate to like 10 or 11 o'clock our time. Because usually Supercars events, they start usually around 10 or 11. And then the second one will usually start around like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Okay,
time. So depending on when they're going you're probably going to see the Grand Prix start around 11 or midnight because that would be like prime viewing time for the Australian audience, and probably everybody else except for the United States. But what are you going to do when the race is halfway across the other side of the world?
Well, I was just going to point out that ESPN had 879,000 viewers for Sunday's races per Adam Stern, by the way. The most watched live F1 race ever on that channel on ESPN2 dating back to 1995. So that was obviously good. I think it's a good start for them.
And did you see the other note there that it got higher ratings than every other 2020 race?
I missed that one. Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
See, there you go. I mean, so this is a discussion for another day. I just didn't know for time purposes how we could build this in, but ESPN is somehow doing something right. Just imagine, and I'll leave it at this, if they put effort into North American motorsports, what they could be doing.
Especially, and I say this especially because of what they do with their digital products.
Yes.
And I said this last night. I did a Twitter, because I quote tweeted what Adam Stern said. And I said this last night. I said, we are so lucky. I was worried in the beginning. I was so worried in the beginning when ESPN got the Formula One rights. I was like, man, are they going to botch this? Are they going to ruin this? How are they going to ignore it? The first race at Australia, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. That first 2018 race in Australia, that coverage was garbage. It was straight garbage. And ever since that first race in Australia, it has been, they fixed it. Mm-hmm. They fixed it. They went commercial free and they started putting it in on better channels. I mean, yes, practice qualifying usually runs on ESPN News, but the races are typically on ESPN or ESPN2, which is always good. And, I have just been blown away. And the biggest thing that I wanted to say about that is just, I mentioned how happy I was to watch Formula 2 this week. And I said this also on Twitter, and I'll say it again here. We are so lucky in this ESPN rights deal to have access to Formula 2 and Formula 3. Because prior to that, when NBC had the rights, you were lucky if they aired a tape-delayed GP2 race, like after the Formula One race. Typically, this is what would happen. I remember because I used to, 2013, 2014, I used to tape a bunch of stuff for archival purposes. And I would have to actively seek out, like, when were they going to air a GP2 race, because I wanted to tape that, obviously. And, I mean, there were times where that stuff didn't even get broadcasted because of something else. I think there was one time they were supposed to broadcast a GP2 race, and it got preempted for a golf match that got rain delayed. The golf match was supposed to be airing on Big NBC, and they moved it to NBCSN because of the rain delay. And as a result, like that broadcast that was supposed to air either didn't air, or it aired at some obscure time in the early morning hours when no one could watch it or even knew about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just thank my stars that we don't have to worry about that anymore. Like it's so easy. As if you have an ESPN subscription, you just go onto the Watch ESPN app and just pull up the Formula 2 race. It's totally free. It's right there. The full thing, live, commercial free. It's just right there for you. You can watch the whole thing. You can watch all 3 races, live, commercial free. Basically free. I mean, it's not free in the sense that, you have to have a cable subscription to watch it, but they're not making you pay any extra. You don't have to have ESPN Plus to watch F2. You have to have ESPN Plus to watch Formula 3, but not F2. And I think that because do you know how hard it was for me personally as a feeder series fan to watch feeder series before then? There was no legal way to do it.
No.
I mean, there was no legal way to do it. And it was a pain in my fanny to try and keep up with GP2 and GP3 back in the day. And so, I said, I'm going to be glad that it is going where it's going, because my biggest worry is that it ends up like the MotoGP rights here in NBC. I don't know if you knew this, but there was a MotoGP race this weekend.
That one, but yeah.
There wasn't it. Well, and that's okay, because I don't blame you, because NBC cares about almost nothing about MotoGP. They got the rights. They stole the rights from BN Sports, who, by the way, still desperately need it. If you actually look at BN Sports' lineup now, it's completely fallen apart. It had a lot of rights, and it's lost all of them. It's only got like a few major soccer series rights now, which is fine. I mean, most people like that stuff, like Spanish League One or La Liga, excuse me. And that's all good and fine. But we used to see the full MotoGP weekend, all Moto 3, Moto 2, even Moto E. We got practice and qualifying for all 3 series, and it was all live on BN Sports. And now we're lucky to get a live race on NBCSN. It's ridiculous. They're shutting the channel down, and they can't even be bothered to air this stuff live. They can't even be bothered to dump it on Peacock, for crying out loud. I mean, we are blessed that ESPN, at the very least, airs this stuff on their digital properties.
Right.
I know that was a long rant, but I am just so thankful for that. So I'm going to talk about the actual Formula One race now instead of ranting on about this. So Perez had a total power failure on the formation lap, but as a result, they aborted the start and they ran an extra lap, so the race was a lap slower. But then Perez had to start from the pit lane, and still came all the way back and finished, 4th or 5th?
He finished 5th. I mean, it really helped him when they had the safety car come out for Mazepin spinning on the first lap. So
let's talk about that. Who else? Who laughed as soon as they said Mazepin? Because I'm raising my hand right now. I busted out laughing immediately, and I'm not even going to be ashamed of saying that. That was absolutely hilarious to me. We've now officially entered into the territory of, there is a website called didmazaspin.com.
Seriously?
And
seriously?
Didmazaspin.com, yes.
This is like, did Corey LaJoy wreck Twitter?
No, it's like, did Corey LaJoy wreck? I never knew about that one. I always knew of, did Pastor Maldonado wreck?
No, that's...
Did Maldonado... It was the old website was, did Maldonado crash today? And it would just be a giant no or yes. And now, didmazaspin.com says yes, and it specifically tells you all of the sessions that he spun in.
Well, I think it was, I don't want to say comical, but I'm like, oh gosh. That was kind of my reaction. And then you saw Mick Schumacher do the same thing, like, okay, maybe there's more to this. Maybe the car.
Maybe Haas just sucks.
What?
I said maybe Haas just sucks this year.
They're going to have a long season, and I know watching the progression of them, I'm like, it's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be something I'm watching for, but I don't think there's going to be much to watch there. I think, oh my gosh, it's going to be
two rookie drivers and a car you're not even developing.
Oh my gosh, like Mick Schumacher's like, can 2022 get here any quicker? That's what he's thinking about.
I keep hearing rumors all over the place, and Mick is probably like, man, and another alter. Excuse me, I'm burping because I've had Coke Energy, and that's terrible radio. I apologize. Mick Schumacher's got to be sitting there thinking, man, in an alternate reality, I could be in an Alfa Romeo running 12th, and instead I'm back here in a Haas running 18th.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I never heard anything why things fell away.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The rumors that I have heard, and these are just rumors, take these with a grain of salt, but the rumors I've heard is that, and I said this on the show last year, and you can go back and listen to them. I said this on the show last year, and these were the rumors then, and these are still the rumors, and even now, even after everything's been confirmed, these are still the rumors of stuff that was supposed to happen. Mick was supposed to go to Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo was not actually supposed to re-sign Kimi and Giovinazzi. They did, which obviously threw a wrench into everybody's plans.
Right.
Mick had a sponsorship deal that was either going to go to Alfa Romeo or it was going to go with him to Haas.
Mm-hmm.
Haas was going to take that sponsorship deal and basically make it the whole thing. If actually someone pointed this out, that if you look at the Drives to Survive, you can actually see a prototype Haas car from before the Mazepin announcement. It's supposed to have it was supposed to have Mick's 1-in-1 sponsorship. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be the whole livery. The idea from that was, this is where that Callum Ilott story, Ilott had the seat basically at Haas. He was supposed to go there and be teammates, I believe, with Kevin Magnussen. They were going to let Grosjean go, but they were supposed to, at the very least, up until, I guess, 0 hour, they were going to keep Magnussen.
Yeah.
And pair him with Schumacher, basically. And that was going to be the goal, was they were going to keep Magnussen and pair him with Schumacher. And then Mazepin comes along, basically dumps a whole ton of money in front of Gene and Gunter, and says, run my egg-headed son. And the rest is history. Ilott gets said, hey, congratulations on your F2 championship, but your services will no longer be needed. Mick, with the ink not, who's getting ready to sign for Alfa Romeo, has that pulled out from under and be like, hey, by the way, we're re-signing both of our drivers, go to Haas. And that's how it happened, basically. I mean, Mick got the short end of the straw there. I mean, I really don't know what to tell him. I feel bad for Mick.
I think
he got the short end of the straw.
His time at Ferrari will come, because Sainz only has a 2-year deal. So I think he's just got to wait out this bad time here, and then he'll eventually get his shot. And maybe next year he gets to go to Alfa Romeo, because maybe they don't bring back Giovinazzi or Kimi Räikkönen, and he gets his shot over there before going to Ferrari. Who knows?
And that's the thing about F1 racing is all of the silly season stuff, those rumors, so fluid. Contracts can be ripped apart, and we've seen that. We've seen it. Sergio Perez could tell you that straight up. Contracts can be ripped apart. You're never safe sometimes. So that's the sad reality of it. But, we had a really good Formula One race this week. We were very, very blessed. I was very interested in how qualifying was, because I wasn't sure of the parity. I was actually very intrigued by the potential for Formula One parity this year because of the freeze in development. I felt like we were on pace for having something very, very new. And I think we saw that with Verstappen getting the pole. Mercedes is still fast. Mercedes is still Mercedes. But we're seeing a very, very solid midfield that's very much creeping up into podium positions and could very well be, at the very least, overtaking Bottas. Maybe not Hamilton, but at the very least, Bottas for podiums here. And that's not to insult Bottas. It's just like, like I said, I never mean this as an insult to Bottas. It's just, I mean this specifically as, what are you going to do when you're teammates with someone who's basically perfect? It's not a knock on Bottas. I'm not knocking Bottas. Bottas is a great driver. If you take Hamilton out of the situation, Bottas is a multi-time champion. The problem is his teammate is basically perfect, and because he's not perfect, which, let's face it, basically no race car driver is, except for Lewis Hamilton, and probably for a time Ayrton Senna too. I consider those two as being, and Michael Schumacher. Schumacher, Senna, and Hamilton I will consider to be the three perfect race drivers, at the very least, the modern era of Formula One, like within the past 30 years. And I say that just because history is on my side. It's not a knock to Bottas, but we saw, Mercedes could shoot themselves in the foot with Bottas, and they did. They had a slow stop there and ruined his race. And like I said, in a lot of cases, that's just stuff that happens that's out of your control. And sometimes it happens because you're the number 2 driver. Sometimes it happens because it was just an accident. Bottas, quite honestly, probably is getting sick of this and would love to have an opportunity to win a race and not have that opportunity be hampered by a mistake on pit road. Right. But again, what are you going to do in situations like that? And I look at a lot of situations. This was a very good, interesting Formula One race. Vettel was slow. Stroll was fast. Didn't see that coming. AlphaTauri was looking pretty good there, especially with Tsunoda. Gasly didn't get a chance to showcase his speed,
I think
but he qualified 5th.
Yeah.
He qualified 5th, which is a really good sign for an AlphaTauri, and a really good sign for Pierre Gasly. Yeah. Because definitely Gasly, this is the thing, Gasly cannot afford to be beaten by Tsunoda.
No. And
Tsunoda has impressed me in a record amount of time. I mean, the rise from Tsunoda from, being essentially a nobody in 2018 that very few people had heard of to being a Formula One driver in 2021. I mean, it is the rise is so incredible, and he scores points on debut, gets 9th, scores points on debut, which, what did they say? It was the best finish for a rookie on debut since 2002? Did I read that?
My memory is failing me.
Or am I reading? I might have been reading a different stat.
Maybe
that was Mazepin's.
I feel like there was someone who scored points in their debut better or sooner.
There was someone who, I can't remember the stat. I'm trying to remember the stat off the top of my head. There was a stat that from 2002 that either Mazepin had the fastest exit or Tsunoda had the highest finish for a rookie, and I can't remember which stat was correct. But either way, I read both of those stats. So highest finish for a rookie since X year that I can't remember off the top of my head. But the point is, holy cow, Tsunoda's here. Tsunoda's here to stay, and I think a lot of people are really, really happy for him because he's such a great kid. He's such a nice kid.
To watch. That whole AlphaTauri, Gasly, Tsunoda, that's going to be a fun team. And like you, I was encouraged by Gasly's 5th place qualifying effort. So hopefully
AlphaTauri's got something.
Yeah, I do like how they're not treating this team kind of like a junior team anymore. And it's like this is its own kind of thing. It might lead, you might lead them up to Red Bull, but we're going to let them go out there and play as their own team. And
if they beat Red Bull, isn't that the main point?
That's the main point. I would definitely encourage that. Definitely.
I mean, if you're going out there and beating Red Bull, then hey, great. You should get on the big team and do even better, because the big team's probably got a lot more money than AlphaTauri. I hate to say it. So Hamilton wins again in it's just a thrilling duel with Max Verstappen. But I did want to talk about here. You mentioned the track limits, and they talked about it a lot. They mentioned that Lewis Hamilton went over track limits in turn 4 29 times.
Yeah.
And here's the thing this is the thing that was frustrating to me, is I don't blame Verstappen. He had to give the position back. He had no choice. He had to get the position back because he passed him, well beyond track limits at turn 4. If you pass outside of track limits, you have to give the position up. There's no denying that. That's just the way things are. That's just the rules. If you don't do that, I understand. Verstappen felt like he could get a 5-second gap.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have, in hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. I think he could have. But at the same time, I also think, the FIA was just they gave Hamilton a warning, like halfway through the race, track limits. And Hamilton had been leading. So this wasn't like a situation of Hamilton passing cars. He was just running his race. And people brought up the point, well, him running wide all those times gave him an overall time advantage.
It did.
And so and I guess if everybody is running wide, which they talked to Leclerc after the race, and he was like, oh, yeah, I was told in the driver's briefing that, it was okay as long as you didn't pass, And I'm like, well,
that's not
so you can't pass over track limits, but you could go over track limits whenever you want. How is this? What is the fairness here?
It's not fair. It's two sets of rules for two different circumstances. Where in one case, in Hamilton's, you can get an advantage. You can get that advantage, and if you are able to be better through that corner because of that and gain a few tenths, and this other guy can't do what you're doing, that is a major advantage to you. So I think the FIA has to go back and look at this and say, look, when you have to have your right sides or your left sides, two tires within the racing limits, you exceed that. Once is a mistake, twice if you exceed it 3 times, especially in a row, okay, here's your warning. Next time you do it, you're getting dinged. And
they were giving drivers black and white flags in the F2 race for doing that same thing, for track limits violations.
Yeah, I don't know why they're having two sets of rules for everybody, in even in different series. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, Hamilton's clearly had an advantage because if he's not doing that, he's not getting through that corner as fast, and Verstappen's able to catch him quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
Time. So that's and to me, I don't know if he would have got the 5 seconds or not, but I admire his belief in him and his car for sure. But he ultimately did the right thing. I have to agree though with the commentators that he did it in the wrong spot. He should have given it back in the next straightaway and not that straightaway where he had to go through and negotiate some S's. And he should have done it where, all right, I'm going to have DRS the next straight, and I can pass him again that way.
Oh yeah, my theory would have been, let him pass you right before the DRS detection zone. Yes. Grab the DRS and then make the pass again on a more
doing that.
Oh yeah, 100%. But hindsight's 2020. What are you going to do? You're racing with Lewis Hamilton. You're You're in under 10 laps to go situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna, it's easy to look back from it from an armchair racer standpoint and be like, oh, we should have done this, but in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Mercedes Red Bull fight a lot. This is going to be a fun year.
Hamilton said he loved fighting with Verstappen,
I love that he's excited about the fight because I'm pretty sure it's been kind of boring the past few years.
I was going to say, it's probably boring as all hell to race with your teammate every week, and that's your closest competition. It's got to be nice when somebody comes up and gives you a fight, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot, I'm the best driver in the world. Let me show everybody, I'm not just someone who knocks out hot laps every time. I can actually race somebody and do well. And I think Hamilton's that. He's not just somebody who can knock out hot laps all the time. He's somebody who can actually race well and do it clean and do it aggressively at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was Formula One. We had a great season, great weekend. Formula 2 weekend was great. I'm just disappointed that we have to wait all the way until May now for the next Formula 2 race. We have to wait even longer for the Formula 3 season to begin. Let's talk about Bristol Dirt, because that was fun. It was really bizarre too, though. So we got Thursday practice was fun to watch, or Friday practice, I should say. Friday practice was really fun to watch. I talked about this on the show either last week or a couple of weeks ago, just how much I missed practice and qualifying. So Friday, having something to turn on at like 3 o'clock and just keep on all night was just outstanding. I absolutely loved it. I adored it. And it was interesting. It was great to see where, cars were, where trucks were, what teams were going to do, what the tire wear was going to look like, big. It was just great to see that. It was fun. Guys were getting different experience levels, guys were going out there and running about as quickly as they could. Guys were getting out of one truck and then immediately into their cup car to run laps. I mean, it was just outstanding. And then you get into Saturday where it rains. You get so much mud that nobody can see. Probably the windshield should not make a return next year. You should probably just.
I think that's an overreaction, but we can talk about that in a second.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if they had had no windshields, we probably could have run Saturday.
I think if it doesn't rain as much on Saturday, we don't have a windshield conversation. No one talked about it.
Yeah, obviously if it doesn't rain, but say circumstances are the same.
Trucks ran windshields at Eldora for their 7 races there. No one ever mentioned the windshields are a problem. It was just because it rained. It's because they didn't ever have a rain issue at Eldora this bad, at least. So I think the whole windshield conversation is an overreaction. That's my opinion.
It might very well be, but if you're trying to put on a show for the fans, you don't want to necessarily delay it because the cars aren't dirt except like any other small short track in the world is not going to postpone because the track is too muddy, because most of those cars are still going to be able to go out and run because they don't have windshields anyway. Most of those cars, the show must go on in that case. The thing about it is you're probably right in that it is an overreaction, but you have to keep in mind, Bristol not just attracted NASCAR fans, but also just dirt fans in general. These dirt fans are not used to that. They're not used to there being so much mud that they have to postpone the race or cancel it altogether. They're probably sitting up there being like, take the freaking windshields off. What are you guys doing? The show can go on here if you just take those freaking things. And they're probably right. They're absolutely right. And that's the thing about Bristol Dirt is you're going to get NASCAR fans and dirt fans, and trying to appease both crowds is going to be hard.
Yeah, but that's in any series. Trying to get a NASCAR fan to enjoy IndyCar, or an IndyCar fan to enjoy Formula One, or any combination, you're going to have that mix. It's going to be hard to get that. But I do see the point. I have a note here. I wanted to say 2 things. One quick. One, tarps. Why are we not investing in this technology in short tracks at the very least? I don't know how. I understand. I'm not. That if you have a tarp down and it rains, you're going to get a little bit moisture underneath still. But I feel like you still protect the majority of the integrity of the track. And at the very least, if you had tarps in the straightaways, that would have helped out immensely, I would think. I don't understand. That would have been something I would be looking at in general, not just for dirt racing, but imagine if it rains at Martinsville and you're able to get out there, get the tarps down, and all right, well, we're only going to need 20 minutes to dry the track compared to an hour. All right, that saves TV time. That keeps people at the track happy. Don't have to wait as long to go back racing. Obviously, like I mentioned, the TV networks, and even like at a place like Charlotte, where if you can put a tarp down on the straightaways, then you can just worry about the turns. Quicker drying time. I don't know. That was my deal. And then Rob, I'm just going to go ahead. Go ahead.
Have you heard, listened to, I don't know if you have, it dropped last night. Have you listened to the Dale Jr. download for this week?
I saw a sneak peek of it. I have not listened to it yet, but I'm excited.
Yeah, you're starting to talk into territory that Bristol was actually literally, you're not far off from tarps, except Bristol might go a little bit further. Yeah. Marcus Smith said in 5 years, and I'm quoting him here, he said in 5 years, we might need a roof over Bristol.
That's not it's not the craziest idea in the world.
Retractable roof, Bristol?
Extremely ambitious, I'll put that much. And I want to say this before we get any further. Rob.
Mm-hmm.
It's
what is
not
this? What are you showing me?
I'm going to eat crow. I'm going to eat crow.
What? Okay, so since this is radio, we gotta explain this. So I'm going to tell our viewers what Josh has done here. Is he's got a plate, and can you hold it up for me a little bit more, Josh, so I can see this? All right, he's got a plate of some meat here, and he's going to eat it. Eat this plate full of meat.
Okay, seriously. Okay, here's why. I'm never going to doubt anything that Speedway Motorsports and Marcus Smith do ever again. I remember back when they announced the rule, I'm like, this is crazy. This isn't going to work. There's no way. What did it do? It worked. This dirt weekend, even though we had the issues with the rain aside, we learned a lot. I think they're going to go back to the drawing board and do a lot of fixing between NASCAR and the track. But you know what? This racing this weekend was good. It was good. So I'm going to eat crow.
Okay, so he's literally. I briefly considered screen recording this, but I decided not to. So he's literally eating. It looks like ham. He says it's crow.
It's turkey.
It's turkey. Okay, it's turkey. So he's eating a bird. He's eating a bird. Yeah. Let's. I mean, yeah. I thought it was going to be a complete disaster as well, and there were some parts that were a disaster. Don't get me wrong. There were some parts that were absolutely disastrous, but then there was a lot of parts of the race that were just fantastic. So, I flip-flopped a lot on whether or not I liked it, whether or not I didn't like it. I thought this was going to go poorly. I thought this was going to be a complete disaster, and I made I really made no secrets about that prior to this weekend, where I was like, I'm very skeptical of this being a success. And
I was too.
And we talk about the Truck Series race. The Truck Series race, was basically the big guinea pig. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. But Martin Truex Jr., with almost no dirt experience, just comes right out here in a Kyle Busch Motorsports car and whips the whole field. Which, by the way, fun fact is apparently it's okay for Cup drivers to be in the lower series as long as their names aren't Kyle Busch. Which, again, obviously everybody knows that. But NASCAR can't just ban Kyle Busch, so fans want them all banned. They want a blanket ban, but they'll cheer for Bubba and Daniel Suarez and even in this case, Kevin Harvick, and a lot of people were cheering for Ryan Newman. They were disappointed when Ryan Newman had to go home. He didn't get to race because it rained out, and then people were all apparently totally okay with Truex winning the race. No complaints there. Truex winning the race. I'm like, guys, make up your mind. Is it okay or is it not okay? So yeah, good. I mean, it was a good race. John Hunter Nemechek obviously getting taken out was disappointing. The pole sitter of the race at the time. I mean, due to the way the weird formula or whatever. But then he ended up getting the car further ruined by the safety truck, which Bristol proudly posted on their Twitter account, which I personally would not have taken very much pride in, knowing that we just accidentally wrecked a car.
I mean, the car was already probably totaled anyways, but I was more concerned about what did you damage on the truck and the machinery on the truck as a result of that. Also, I would not want to have been that driver because he's going to be getting a hard time for a while for people like me. And you went into a truck. Don't allow this guy on the track, but glad everyone's okay. No one was hurt in this incident where it could have been. But I thought
John Hunter's whole radiator was leaking all over the track at the time. That's why I had to clean it up.
Yeah. I mean, that was before he got hit by the safety truck. But I thought that whole thing was more of a racing incident myself, and racing incident. I couldn't place blame on Matt Crapple.
There were a lot of racing incidents. On Monday.
Yeah.
And as we talk about the Truck Series, I want to move on here into the Cup Series because this was obviously the big show. It was the first time Cup Series had been on dirt in 50 years. Richard Petty before the race weekend was very adamant that this was going backwards. Some people seem to agree with that. And I think Kyle Busch is probably going to be the number one person to agree with that because I couldn't believe the guy took the lead and then immediately started overheating.
Yeah,
I mean, Kyle Busch probably had the longest day on Monday. I mean, he didn't race the truck race, but it seemed like he had a longer day than even those guys that did run the truck race because he start all the way at the front, have an overheating problem. Your car just starts pushing water while he's leading, and this is this thing that surprised me because he's leading while this happened. I expected overheating issues to happen further back in the pack, not to the leader. So this was incredibly surprising to me. I expected dirt to get into the radiator. I expected it to be really tough. And this is the thing, how many times do you have stock cars and stock trucks run on dirt? Combining NASCAR and ARCA, it's only a few times a year.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen regularly. Dirt tracks are made for dirt late models. They're made for
sprint cars.
They're made for sprint cars. They're made for World Outlaws. They're made for in some cases, dirt stocks. like really old stock cars from like the 80s, I guess, but they've been
all
souped
the
up to
cars,
run on dirt because the ride height's ridiculously high. You know
they
what I
don't
mean? You know what I'm talking about.
right down there, right off the surface. That was the problem. For in Kyle's case, is like these intakes with these cars, like Thunder stocks, they're riding up in the air. You know, they're not going super fast. Well, here you're sucked low to the ground, so.
And even then, they weren't sucked as low to the ground as they usually were. It was actually so aesthetically pleasing to see the cars and the ride height up off the ground there, and no splitter.
Yes.
Look, this race was incredibly aesthetically pleasing.
Very,
I'll say that.
Very. I like one of the first things I saw for the Cup Series this weekend was Team Penske posting a video of their cars. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just admire how good these cars look without splitters. Let's just admire
outstanding. And I bet they would race even better without splitters.
I know they would. The racing would improve without splitters. We've talked about that, but was not.
and here was another thing that I wanted to mention here too. Is this was really crazy. The stage format was very weird, and I understand why they did it, but it was really weird to me because you have a 250 lap race, but stage 1 is lap 100 and stage 2 is lap 200.
Well, they changed it.
So the final stage is half of the first two stages.
Well, they changed it.
But we also have competition cautions here that are going to count. They're not going to count as for stage points, but they're kind of going to be the stage. So we're going to break it up into 5 50-lap stages. I was like, okay, but.
Well, Rob, like I said, they had to change it. They had when they went back after the practice. It was. I think they
changed it. I'm not denying that. I just think it was weird change.
But they had to make an adjustment. It would have been very weird. It would have been a lot worse if they didn't, and they don't have that competition caution. All of a sudden, you have tires failing on the track every which way, and you would have.
Well, tires were already a big issue. I mean, we were seeing pretty bad tire wear there. I mean, they were showing on the Fox broadcast. I was so surprised to just see how much those treads got worn off so rapid. I mean, it would be like, a 25, a 35 lap stint, and the rear tires would be completely smooth.
But you know what? I liked it. In a way, I liked it where with the tire, it sucked for the planning of the race and kind of the format, trying to keep it to a normal race weekend on pavement. But it was nice to see where drivers, hey, I got to protect this tire a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
50 laps is kind of pushing it. If I don't save it and if I push it too hard by hanging out too far, I'm going to have an issue. I'm going to have a tire expire on me. And yeah, it definitely was weird that we had a 100-lap stage and we had 200-lap stages and we had a competition caution in it, but I felt it was necessary. And you know what? I don't think it was the worst thing in the world. Again, full disclosure, unfortunately, I took Sunday off to watch these races. I had Saturday night off to watch the truck race. Mother Nature had other plans for me.
I'm so sorry for you there.
Couldn't get a recording on the on my TV for it, and I couldn't access your YouTube TV because of things that we won't get into. And the TV rights deal sucks. So F1, thank you ESPN. Those races are available right away. When they're done, you can watch it straight away. But for whatever reason, it takes 3 days for NASCAR and the TV to allow me to watch it on a replay. Whatever. I digress. I thought it was still a good race because of it, all the highlights I watched, and I think the format kind of helped a little bit based off of the issues that they had. Again, I thought it was a good race. Was it a great race? No. It can be better. Maybe if they go back to the drawing board and they look at how can we improve the car design. We talked about, I won't get ahead of myself. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I thought it was a good race. I really did, despite that change. I think that one of the bigger moments of this race was when we lost Larson and Bell, because I think those were going to be two big guys, and all of a sudden you see Bell crashes and takes out himself. He's done, but Larson was never the same the rest of the day. How many people lost money and then made money as a result? And on the Vegas betting odds.
I didn't take a look at what Logano's odds were,
but I
think if I had known, I'd like to see what they are.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. I think I thought it was a good race. We had to one of the bigger issues I think they do have to address is the I can't see anything with the dirt, and that's why they went to the single file restarts. No, people, for whatever reason, people didn't like that. I don't think there's a problem with them going single file restarts because that's common on dirt in dirt practice. And again, we're kind of NASCAR again hasn't been on dirt. The Cup Series has been on dirt in 51 years. The Truck Series was the first series to do that in 2013. Of course, ARCA has ran dirt, but single file restarts are not uncommon, and it's very highly in practice, especially when the dust is a problem. And it did alleviate a lot of the issues that were caused. Like we had a couple of cautions really quick in succession there because they couldn't see what was going on, and you can't drive by feel at a place like Bristol, and I definitely wouldn't want to do that and drive by feel in general, anyways.
I thought I echo a lot of your statements about the race. I feel like it was a good race. I'm glad, like you said, I had no issues going to single file restarts because double file restarts were getting to the point where they were so ridiculous it was dangerous. I mean, there was a GIF out there that I even retweeted, and I said, "Holy cow! You could not see coming off turn 4."
No,
it was you were blinded. You were absolutely blinded by the sun and the dirt and the dust. You can't tell who's next to you, who's in front of you. Kyle Busch said it right. I mean, he got involved in one of the accidents. It was ridiculous. There was no reason to be doing double file restarts there.
Yeah.
Single file restarts were necessary.
Yeah,
and they kept the dust levels down. I feel like if you're a fan up there, you're gonna have to bring goggles to every race now. Every dirt race now. But like I said, it was a good race. There's a lot of blaring issues, which I think this is a good segue into our next segment here. Since we officially have announcements that Bristol Dirt is returning in 2022, most likely to the spring date again.
Yeah.
What would you like to see them change, Josh? Because I have a few critiques that definitely need to be fixed and addressed. And I think that you do as well. So why don't you go ahead and tell me some of your tweaks that you want to see adjusted, and I'll give the listeners mine.
Yeah, I got a couple things here. So if we kind of keep the same format, and they want to keep it as a day race, I would say Friday it's practice only, and then on Saturday let's have qualifying, and then let's run the heat races, and then let's run the B mains. I think that would be kind of cool. I think that's a full day of racing on those 2 days. So I like that, and then run a doubleheader on Sunday. I really like the idea that the trucks run and then the Cup Series runs. That's a full day. But you know what? Race fans, we're very loyal, and we like to have that. And if you only want to go to the Cup race, that's fine. If you only want to stay for the truck race, that's fine too. So I like that. That's one thing I'd say. If they keep it on separate days, the Cup Series really needs to run at noon or 1 p.m. because we didn't have this issue of I can't see in the Truck Series. We just didn't. So that's an important thing. The setting sun, the glare off the dust, not a good mixture. You can't have that. The more I thought about it, I never think about this before until this weekend. There's probably a reason it was slotted in this date in this weekend because you're followed by an off weekend. It's a lot more difficult to get a dirt track back compared to a pavement track. You got to do a little bit of farming. So if you get delayed, hey guys, guess what? We're going to run on the Friday before Easter, but good news is we don't have to be racing anywhere Sunday. Sorry, you lost your off week. Your off weekend. That's just the life of a NASCAR touring series team. That sometimes these things happen. But if we could, I'd swap this date out with COTA. Move Bristol to May. Move COTA back to around this time of the year where you get a road course early, because I love a road course. It's nice, spread out evenly throughout the year. And it's going to be less of an issue with weather come that time of the year. Maybe run it before Darlington. So 2 really big weekends back to back there. And then my last 2 more points here, and then I'll finish. I would say Tony Stewart NASCAR, we need to end the feud. Truck Series, go back to Eldora and run Knoxville. Bring the Xfinity Series here instead. That's one thing I might change. Again, there's something going on there between Tony Stewart and NASCAR, and I don't see that being resolved. But I implore them to, in this little spat that they're in, let's get the trucks back to Eldora. They put on a good show there. I like the trucks at a smaller venue. I think it's a good feel. very classic truck series, but bring the Xfinity series to Bristol with the Cup Series. And then my last point here: use this generation car next year. Don't put the expensive brand new cars out on the track where your parts are going to be limited, and just use this car. Use this car next season and call it a day.
All right, so my critiques, which I agree with a lot of those, Josh, but I'm going to go ahead and give my critiques here. They're going to be a little bit different than yours, but kind of share some of the same ideas. So first of all, yeah, we're not running windshields next year. I don't care. We're not going to run windshields in next year. I understand you think that's an overreaction, and I understand a lot of people might think that's an overreaction, but for the sake of the show going on, no more windshields. We're just going to get rid of that entirely. There's no reason to run them. There's no dirt track series out there that runs windshields in their cars that I know of, or if they do, it's because it's ARCA. Just doesn't need to happen, especially if you're going to run the risk of running it during a rainy season and you have the opportunity, the chance that there might be mud on the track. I'd rather see them be able to get the heats in, get the race in, what have you, with muddied cars than have to cancel it because of low visibility and just due to driver safety. That's how I feel about that. So that's why I think windshields should just be taken off entirely for the car. I mean, you've got a whole year to develop the next gen car. I mean, I know you said you don't want to see the next gen car be used here next year, but I really think, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Obviously, the cars are going to get beaten and banging and probably torn up, but it's not like aerodynamics is going to be that big of a thing because we saw the cars that finished in the top 10. I mean, what car looked clean by the end of that day? Everyone had tape on it, damaged, crunched up carbon fiber. What's that?
I was just going to say, more so to save teams money early because parts are potentially...
I agree with that.
That's why I would say run the next gen car or this gen car next year. And if you were to run this race again or another dirt race in 23, then you could use the 7th generation car.
I understand that. I think for a lot of people, though, they'd rather run... I think a lot of NASCAR teams would rather have one set of rules and not be like a 2008 or 2007 type situation where half the races are the old body and half the races are the new body. They probably just... I understand why. I agree with that. First of all, I agree with your take on it. I just don't know if it's going to happen based on how teams are. Bristol Dirt needs to be at night. Move the dirt to the fall instead of the spring. That's my feel, because the spring race better. Spring race needs to be during the day, and the fall race needs to be during at night. So whatever you do, you got to get that. If you want to do Bristol Dirt, it's got to be at night. So you got to move it to the fall. I'm sorry. I know you hate that. You're looking at me like angry.
Because it's a playoff race. I don't think they'll put the only dirt race of the year. I don't think they'll put it in the playoffs.
I say that's the best opportunity. You have a dirt race in. If you're gonna put a dirt race in the regular season, you better put one in the playoffs too. Because you gotta put one in the playoffs too. You can't give non-dirt drivers that advantage. You have to give the dirt guys like Christopher Bell. You have to give him one opportunity.
Christopher Bell can run on pavement, man.
I know he can. I'm just saying. I mean, here's my addendum to that.
Okay.
If you're not going to run it at night, then you have to run it at noon. Or 1 o'clock. There's no excuses. No running it at 3 or 4 and thinking that's going to be acceptable. Either run it at night or run it at noon.
Yeah.
If you don't want to run it at night, then you run it at noon.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to run, or you could just, put the heats at noon if you want that. People who want to watch will tune in for the heats, and then the race can start at like 2:30. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care. Just at the very least, you have to make sure that visibility is not going to come into a problem like we saw on Monday.
Right.
No more canceling. Or here's just the second part. Stop throwing a caution for every single car spin. The biggest pet peeve of the weekend seemed like every single car spin. Not every single car spin. Most single car spins got a caution, which was ridiculous. And
spin caution.
There's just too many cautions in general. No more canceling heat races. If it rains, you shorten the heats to 10 laps each, and you run them an hour and a half before the race. That's how you're going to do it. No canceling heat races. You have heat races. You have people show up specifically for this race. You are not sending people home because it rained. I am not. You cannot have that happen. You cannot have dirt regulars come in, get rides for this, get sponsorship deals. And I think about this. I think about specifically about Jessica Friesen. I think about Ryan Newman, people who put sponsorship deals together to run that truck race, and ultimately had to go home and robbed the fans of seeing those two drivers, who arguably would have been fan favorites, have to go home. I just think, we're not doing that anymore. If it rains, you run those heats in the morning before the race, or you shorten the heats from 15 to 10 laps. You cannot just say, oh, well, it rains, so we're just going to do formula starting lineup. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore. Single file restarts only. Double file restarts were a complete disaster. From now on, the only double file restart should be double file thing, period, should be the start of the race. They start the race double file. Every restart should be single file. No reason to be doing double file restarts, regardless of the time that the restarts are taking place. There's just no reason for it. The amount of dust that's kicked up is just too dangerous. There's no reason for it. It's too crazy. It's too hectic, too chaotic. The cars are too on edge, too slip sliding. You have so much more of an opportunity. Cautions breed cautions, guys. Cautions breed cautions. Every dirt race I've ever been to, there's 9 times out of 10, you'll have one accident, and then, you'll waste the next 10, 15 laps with cars spinning that have to be restarted. Usually in sprint car racing, a car will spin on the restart, and you'll have to restart them, and it'll take a long time until the guys settle down, get out of their rhythm, and then finally start racing for a couple of laps. And that's why I say, dudes, just chill out, do single file restarts throughout the race. Remind drivers it's a long race. It's not like a standard sprint car race. It's not a 30-lap feature. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a 250-lap main. Take your time. Other than that, good show. Other than that, I have no other complaints other than that. Moving on now to the outstanding performance. Josh, go ahead and give me your outstanding performance, because I couldn't pick mine, so I'm going to have you pick yours first.
Daniel Suarez is really the big standout here in that Trackhouse Racing team. Just kind of following the day again. Couldn't watch the full race, but following the day, watching the highlights, he really just shined out there. And if a couple things go differently, he could have been the winner. I'm really proud of that team. He was happy, and the big reason I'm choosing him is because he was so happy watching the videos, the TV interviews. I haven't seen Daniel Suarez that happy. I'm not sure ever. Definitely at least since he's entered the Cup Series. So he's in a really good place right now, and to see that team have good runs, back-to-back weekends, and then a track where, how's this new team going to go? How's a guy who's never really raced on dirt prior to quite literally this week going to do? Good to see. Outstanding performance go to him. 4th place finish.
Yeah, I couldn't pick. I put out a Twitter poll asking people to help me out there, and nobody answered it. Nobody voted. So, because nobody voted, I'm just going to pick 3 guys. So, okay. I'm going to pick all 3 guys, because I'm going to pick Yuki Tsunoda, 9th place on debut, points on debut, an outstanding, just blew me out of the water. Didn't get into Q3, but, you're a rookie. It's not going to happen right away. I'm certain he'll make it into Q3 at some point later this season. Looking into F2, because F2 races was great. Guan Yu Zhou had an outstanding first weekend. He's 2 podiums, so he got a 3rd place and then a 1st place, and then he had a 7th place in the first race. 3rd place in the second, and then obviously won the 3rd race. This is somebody who didn't have a win until last year, and everybody's looking to him this year, as this is probably going to be Guan Yu Zhou's breakout season in Formula 2. And I would believe that, because this is somebody who I think got snubbed by Alpine. I think they took Fernando Alonso for sponsorship, money, publicity reasons when Guan Yu Zhou is available as an outstanding driver. Now I understand Alonso's going to be a lot better, but if Zhou can continue to impress in Formula 2 and maybe even win the championship this year, most likely if he has a performance like this, like he did this past weekend in the rest of the races, like 2 podiums and points still finish, it's going to be really tough to challenge him for the points championship this year. So, and like I said, this is somebody that Alpine needs to look at, especially if he has a good season in F2, because Guan Yu Zhou is here. A lot of people were, on the fence about his abilities, about his talent level, and they have been for a while, which is understandably so because he hasn't really shown up that often until about middle to late season last year. But I mean, he's come out of the gates flying this year, and I'm just really excited to see it. So I think Alpine's definitely got to be looking at it because it's about time we've had a good Chinese driver in Formula One, and I think Guan Yu Zhou could be that. And then finally, Daniel Suarez as well. Suarez gets it. I mean, that dude, Trackhouse Racing Team, brand new team basically, running their 7th race as a team, as an organization, running up front, leading so many laps, finishing 4th. I mean, he could have had the race win. I was pulling for him to get the race win, but, hey, things happen. But my goodness, Suarez just outshined my expectations. So I'm going to give it to all 3 of those guys. I explained why. All 3 of those guys are definitely deserving of it. They had outstanding race weekends, and it was just too hard to pick. I mean, all 3 of those guys in their respective races just killed it. They just killed it, and I didn't expect Tsunoda to do as well as he did, and he did. I didn't expect Suarez to do as well as he did. I mean, he had no dirt experience, almost no dirt experience. He runs the truck race, does okay, runs kind of okay, then comes out in the Cup race and starts leading laps. Just holy cow. And then Joe, like I already explained, probably one to watch in Formula 2 this year. Obviously, he's going to have a lot of competition with Piastri and Schwartzman, the Prema team. But, dude, they're going to be duking it out with Guan Yu Zhou. I can just see it right now. So that's my outstanding performance, Josh. Let's move into our upshift and downshift, one of our favorite segments of the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for listening. And here's how it works. Our upshift to downshift is basically like our opinions, our takes, our hot takes, or whatever. That's our section. So we'll have a series of hypothetical questions and or statements that will be proposed. Josh and I will either upshift if we agree, downshift if we disagree, and we'll even pose the question onto you. Use the hashtag Rob and Roller to play along with yourself. Play along with us at home. Anytime you're listening to this show and you feel like you've got an opinion you just need to share, go ahead and use that hashtag Rob and Roller. Like I said, again, it's pulled up on my tweet deck. I see it. Every time I get on my work computer, every time I get on my home computer, I see it on my tweet deck. Hashtag Rob and Roller. I will read your tweets. I will connect with you. We will. It'll happen. So interact with the show anytime if you have any opinions that you feel you want to get out into the void like I do all the time on my Twitter. Trust me. So the first question here, Zane Smith was penalized in the Camping World Truck Series race on Monday when his team refueled the truck before changing tires during the non-live pit stop after stage 1. Do you upshift or downshift that this is a necessary penalty, Josh?
The first words out of my mouth, like, that's stupid. So I downshift. What does it matter? It's a non-live pit stop. You have 3 minutes to change your truck. Who cares what order you change your truck in? Why does that matter? Whose idea was this? I don't get the point. It's just a dumb penalty. Obviously, someone dropped the ball on the team. And the rule at the time, the rules. So someone dropped the ball, and he had to go to the back. I can't remember where he finished. But this is a stupid, unnecessary rule and a penalty that should never have been assessed as a result. So I downshift.
And that's totally a fine take, Josh. I think that's a take that I would probably agree with. For me personally, I felt like if it's in a non-live pit stop, do whatever you want to the car. There's no time limit on you as long as you follow the normal rules of pitting the race car. I don't see it as a problem. I'm with you. I think it's a pretty silly rule. I think if it's a non-live pit stop, you should be able to do whatever you want to the car and however long the time frame you're given. I don't see a problem with that. So I'm gonna downshift that one as well. That's an unnecessary penalty. So moving on to the next one here. The WEC should join IMSA and run in conjunction with one another during the 12 hours of Sebring. Do you upshift or downshift this, Josh?
Yeah, I'm gonna preface this before. I'm not very well informed about the rules and regulations of IMSA compared to WEC and how it works. I'm not, but I think as a casual sports car fan, I think it'd be cool to see them run together. So I would upshift, have the WEC and IMSA run this joint race and not run just simply 1,000 miles of Sebrings for the WEC. So run it together. I think it'd be pretty cool. I think it'd be a really neat international race. So I upshift.
I'm fairly certain that the rules are are pretty different for WEC and IMSA right now. But I'm fairly certain that both parties are working on some kind of homogenized car in the future. I don't know how the sports cars, the sports car classes would take it. I don't know what they're doing with it. I assume most sports car classes are going to be GT3 based cars for in the future. I mean, I know that's what they're trying to kind of get with supercars is kind of like a GT3 style car. If you've seen the Camaro that's coming out for supercars, you'll kind of know what I mean. I think the rules are too different. Personally, I don't think that this is something that's currently feasible to my knowledge. It might be, but I think it would require quite a bit of rules changes on both parties' accounts. But I like seeing IMSA and WEC together on the same weekend, so I don't think they need to be combined, but I do like seeing them on the same card, because I think there's a lot of sports car fans that like both types of racing, both WEC and IMSA, because, you get an international flair and you get your North American flair for best of both worlds. I'd probably prefer to see them just, run in conjunction with each other on the weekends. So the next question here: through 7 races, Stewart-Haas Racing only has 2 top 5s and 5 top 10s, all from Kevin Harvick. Is it time to press the panic button for SHR?
Yes, I love shifting. It is time. This is kind of concerning. They really haven't had the speed, and even Kevin Harvick has been lackluster at best. Even though he's got 5 top 10s, he's been an also ran, and for a team that last year, I get it, that didn't win till a few races in the year. Even we had a 3-month break there. It took him a while to win, and I get that, but this year, it's not the same Kevin Harvick. And for a season where there wasn't a whole lot of change, shouldn't have been a lot of change, yeah, if I'm an SHR fan, I'm worried. I upshift.
I'm very worried. I mean, Kevin Harvick is carrying the banner for them right now, and they're not even... That's not even saying much. I mean, Custer has been completely forgettable. Almirola has just been a disaster. Well, Almirola's been better, but the finishes haven't shown. And Briscoe's just been... I've completely forgotten that Briscoe's even running for Rookie of the Year.
And that's...
I don't even... It doesn't even register that he's even out there sometimes. And that's what's really sad, because in the Xfinity Series, you were talking about Chase Briscoe almost every other lap. And now it's like, you look at the ticker and you're like, oh, he's out there in 28th, but he's out there. I forgot. Yeah, I'm going to upshift. I would start to be in panic mode. We've been 7 races and there's only one car showing speed, and it's not even that fast. So next question here. It's almost a ritual for Josh and I at this point, but the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season is 7 races in and has 7 different winners. Martinsville will produce an 8th different winner through 8 races. Do you upshift or downshift this, Josh?
I'm going to upshift this week. I downshifted last week that we would get 7, but I thought there'd be a couple guys who'd already won races this year that would find victory lane. That'd be really good. But here, Martinsville, I look at this place as Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott's opportunity to kind of get that breakthrough win this year. So I'm going to upshift.
There's lots of possibilities for Martinsville. There's lots of possibilities coming up. I'm upshifting too. I like the way it's going, but I'm also knocking on wood, because the last thing I need is someone to come out here and spoil this one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That is that for upshift, downshift segment. In our final segment of the week, I want to take a moment here to do something that's really important, and I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can for the sake of time here. But we've had a lot to talk about in this podcast so far, and we are really pressed for time, not just for Josh, but also just because I don't want to keep you guys too long. So I've decided to do something a bit unorthodox here with my featured profile. There's a lot of female drivers that are driving right now. The futures have been paved by the Trailblazers before them. And I've talked a lot about the Trailblazers, primarily the two and Patty Moise and Shauna Robinson. I know I focused on them and their NASCAR and their stock car careers, but there's been a lot of other female drivers out there that have paved the way for open wheel success. Obviously with Janet Guthrie, Danica Patrick, I think about her. Those people, those girls really showed everybody at a young age that women can do this too. This is not a men's sport. This is an everybody sport. If you can show up, if you can negotiate your sponsorship deals. If you're a good business person and you're a good driver, you can make it. It doesn't matter. The problem is, unfortunately, there's still rampant sexism in motorsports. There's still rampant sexism everywhere. And that is an unfortunate reality that we are faced to live with. And I want to do whatever I can to try and stop that. And I know just doing this Women's History Month featured profile might not end sexism tomorrow, but I'm hoping that we can start a conversation and tell people that, there's been a lot of very successful female drivers. They might not have championships. They might not have record numbers of wins. They might not even have a whole ton of top fives. But given the obstacles that they have had to overcome and given a lot of the barriers that they've had to break down, I would consider a lot of them to just be outrageously successful in their own rights. And so I wanted to take a look this week at the female drivers to watch in 2021 so that you too can support them and help ensure the future of women in racing. Because this is something that's very important to me, and I really want to showcase a lot of drivers that, quite honestly, should get more attention than they do, not because they're women, but simply because they're good racing drivers. And they've proven that before, that they can be good in one level of competition or another. A lot of it's down to, funding, finding the right car, and that you'll get that with any driver. But these are some of the drivers that I want to watch. Now, keep in mind, if I left a driver off this list, it's not because I don't think they're very good. I compiled this list specifically based upon potential to try and find, in my opinion, the drivers that I think are going to have something to prove or have something to might be poised for a breakout season. So I'm going to list these drivers, and I'm going to explain, and I'm going to tell you where you can watch them and what series they race in. So first of all, I'm going to start with a driver that never gets talked about, and she should be talked about, is Amy Ruman. She's been running in the Trans Am Series for several years now for her own team, Ruman Racing, and she is arguably one of the most successful drivers in the current iteration of the Trans Am Series. She's a two-time series champion, achieving both in 2015 and 2016, doing both as his owner driver. Amy Ruman is somebody who's often overlooked and shouldn't be. I don't know why she's overlooked. I think it could be because the Trans Am Series is just simply not as popular as it was 20 years ago, which is most likely a possibility, but I'm pretty sure most of those races are still broadcast on CBS Sports. And so if you get a chance to watch Trans Am racing this year, keep an eye out for Amy Ruman. She's currently sitting 6th in the Trans Am points right now, but that's only after one race in Sebring. Anything's possible here with Amy Ruman. She's a champion in Trans Am Series, and she could probably get it done again. Granted, if Tommy Dreese doesn't try and ruin everything. Look up Amy Ruman versus Tommy Dreese and tell me if you like Tommy Dreese, period, after that. Whew. I'm not touching that guy with a 20-foot pole, man. Whew, that guy's burnt so many bridges. Going up in here to the next one, and here's someone you probably all know. We've talked about her before in the past in this show, but Gracie Trotter is running the full ARCA Menard Series with Venturini Motorsports. Now, coming off a third-place finish in the 2020 ARCA Menard Series West Series, including scoring her first win at the Las Vegas Bull Ring, Gracie Trotter hasn't had the best start to the 2021 campaign, and that's probably an understatement. It's been a terrible start, but again, I made this list based upon potential. There's still a lot of races to go in ARCA. There's still a lot of opportunities for Gracie Trotter to get her feet under her. It's her first season with Venturini Motorsports. She was with Bill McAnally last year, and that was a great team. She's clearly proven that when she gets into a good car, she can perform well. I think she's probably gotten rookie jitters running in the big ARCA series this year, running at tracks a little bit differently than she's used to. But in all honesty, I expect big things from her because she is with Venturini Motorsports, and Venturini is arguably one of the biggest powerhouses in the ARCA Menard Series right now. And if she continues to have good qualifying results, and if she can, at the very least finish a race. If she can finish a race, I think she'll have a very good result, no matter what that finish is. Next one here. Here's another one that, again, we've talked about many times. This one is a driver that is not unfamiliar to IndyCar fans at the very least, but it's a driver that I am telling you to look out for because Anna Beatriz is coming back to the IMSA series. Now, Anna Beatriz has been out of racing for a while because of an ongoing embezzlement case, right, between her father and her husband and her, and there was some muddy details, but she did get cleared of any wrongdoing, so she's able to come back and race, and she made a return to competition at Sebring in the IMSA Series 2 weeks ago on March 20th. She posted a 5th place finish with teammates Catherine Legg and Christina Nielsen, who, by the way, you should also watch, but I put Beatriz on this list primarily because she's got something to prove. I think she is racing right now with a chip on her shoulder. She's had relative success in Brazilian stock cars, but I think her IMSA results, especially with her teammates, has been really good. I think that there's a lot of possibilities for her to come out strong. I don't know as of right now if she's confirmed for any other IMSA races, but I hope that she will be, because she's still a really good driver. She's had success in Brazilian stock cars. She's had success in sports cars before. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Anna Beatriz gets any more starts. And also, in general, you should just be following Anna Beatriz. I know it's impossible to follow Brazilian stock cars, so I don't blame anybody for probably losing and forgetting about her. And also because she goes by a totally different name. So, yeah. Just watch out for her. Next one is Sabre Cook, an American. She's an American. I want that to be number one thing. Now, Sabre Cook, I want to preface these things. She's had some difficult runs. The W Series in 2019 was pretty much her first big, no, not really her first major single seater. She had run USF 2000 prior, but it was her first major European single seater, and she finished 12th in championship. She gets to come back for the 2021 championship, and she'll be one to watch because she was touted actually by Lynn St. James as super aggressive with lofty goals. Lynn St. James is high on her, and you can read that in a recent Racer article with Lynn St. James, actually. And Lynn St. James, if Lynn St. James is high on her, she gets my thumbs up of approval as well. She's struggling with funding, though, and that's the biggest thing. She tried to put together a Road to Indy campaign. She's trying to put together a Road to Indy campaign, but obviously it's hard to find sponsorship. You don't have sponsorship, you're not going to get a good car, and if you can get a car, it's probably not going to be all that great. But I look forward to seeing her compete another season in the W Series. I think that's going to be a big opportunity for her, hopefully, to move up and get more experience behind the wheel. And that's always because she was really, really good in karting. She was really, really, really good in karting. And that's the number one thing, is making that transition from karting to single seaters. It can be, for some people, it's a rough transition. For others, it's a seamless transition. Some guys can spend 2-3 years in Formula 4 before they get their feet under them, and then finally make the step up to Formula 3 and start having success. And this could be the case for Sabre Cook. I'm looking forward to it. I think she had a good start to the W Series in 2019, and I look forward to seeing what she does in 2021. Next one is, I've not been no secret, I'm a fan of Tatiana Calderon, and I've said it multiple times. I know, her Formula 2 results were laughable at best, but her GP3 results were really, really solid, and she's had really solid campaigns before, but I'm going to try and keep this as unbiased as I can. I do expect great things from her in the WEC this season with Richard Mille Racing because of her performance in the ELMS last year. I mean, it was her first real outing in sports cars for a while. I mean, she'd been focused on single-seater. She had run sports cars, but last year she kind of focused on sports car racing, and it really showed. She had really good runs in the ELMS, in LMP2. It was a spec class that she was running in, and she was running in drivers that arguably were 20 times her skill level, with 20 times her level of experience, and she was running right up front with them. And so she's got good teammates with her, and she is running single-seaters. In fact, she's actually going to run this weekend at Fuji in the Super Formula, but that team is very underfunded. But she's been working with that team specifically to try and help that team grow up. And that's something that's great that I don't think we see a lot often, is teams going all in on a driver, being like, we're committed to you 100%. We value your opinion. And Tatiana, actually, I read an article from her, and she said, this Drago course team is the first team I've ever been with where I feel like a valued member of the team. She's trying to help the team grow and gain, and they're making gains. They're getting faster they were gaining speed towards the end of the last Super Formula season. The team is getting there. It's going to be a slow transition. Her results in Super Formula are going to be rough at the start, but it's going to happen. She's going to get there, I think, and especially she's going to be one to watch in the WEC. Moving on next year is Sophia Flores. She's moving to DTM. Now, her Formula 3 campaign was really poor last year, and I'm being generous by saying really poor. But I'm chalking that one up to Campos just being terrible. See, Guilherme Samaya. Dude, Guilherme Samaya was garbage last year. Had a hot best finish of like 14th the whole season. 11th, and 16th. He's bested his best finish by moving teams away from Campos to 11th at the end of last year. I would have never said Samaya is going to score points. Really poor performance and just being terrible. But I'm Sportsline in the DTM, so she's going to be running an Audi in Mike Rockenfeller. And so I hear she will also be continue to be teammates with Tatiana Calderon at Richard Mille Racing in the WEC. So definitely, you get experience from Mike Rockenfeller. That's all you can ask. I'm looking forward to seeing what Fleurs has got. I'm leaning more towards Calderon being successful. We'll see what happens. Ultimately, we'll just have to see what happens. I want to thank Josh for letting me do these, and I want to say thank you to our female listeners because I know we have a lot of them, and I didn't do this just specifically to cater to you or for any reason. You know, some people could probably say that was the reason, but that's not what I did this for in my heart. I did this in my heart because one of the things that has always made me proud to be a race fan is the fact that auto racing is the one and only sport that I know of in which men and women compete against each other on a relatively equal playing field. I say relatively because obviously sponsorship dollars and funding issues, and some people are going to have a better car than others. You know, racing's never going to be 100% fair unless you want to go to IROC again. But, you know, for the most part, outside of the rampant sexist issues, if we get rid of the sexist crap that still exists in racing today, I would like there to be, I would like it to be that women have an equal chance as men of rising up through the ranks and not having to rely on, you know, marketing their bodies for some reason just for the sake of sponsorship. You know, I continue to be frustrated by this blatant sexism that still exists in the sport today, and I believe it is up to us, the next generation of race fan, to break those barriers and to tell our daughters and sisters that it's okay to like racing, teach them it is okay to work on cars, encourage them to follow their dreams, and I want nothing more than it to no longer be a major storyline when a woman enters a race. They should not be a sideshow, and unfortunately in many parts of the country and world, they still are. It is important for us to change the dynamic of racing, even though my impact might not be as vast, I'm just highlighting some women that you should know and highlighting their histories. I hope that raising awareness and promoting women in racing will help create that change because, you know, I think about myself, you know, I'm engaged. I'm thinking about the future. I think about what it's like. If I have a daughter in 5-6 years, you know, I don't ever want them to grow up and think that, you know, women's sports are any less than men's. You know, I want my daughter to grow up with me watching the WNBA, with me watching the WNHL, with me watching racing and supporting female racers. You know, I want her to see sports as being all-inclusive for everybody, not just being for men. I want her to grow up being like, well, if you want to play baseball, go play baseball. If you want to go play football, go play football. If you want to play soccer, go play soccer. You know, I don't want to have her grow up in an environment where she doesn't think she can do something because, you know, she's a woman. I don't want that to happen. And I don't think that should happen because I've had a lot of very important women in my life that have impacted me in numerous ways. So, you know, I wanted to do these. I'm thankful again for Josh for letting me do this because women in racing is a very important topic to me. I want there to be no more stigmas. I mean, we talked all last summer about ending the stigma of, you know, racism in auto racing, ending that, you know, bringing minorities in, and women is a big part of that, you know, not just, you know, white women, but black women, Hispanic women, you know, there's Muslim women that are in racing. In fact, there's a Saudi Arabian driver that is racing right now, or excuse me, not Saudi Arabian, she's from the UAE, I believe. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I do know she's racing. You know, I want to see that. I want to see all that kind of diversity and culture because that's one of the best things about racing is you go to any Formula One weekend, you look at all the feeder series, and it's a diverse melting pot of cultures and backgrounds. And I think we can really get that and even better with with more women being involved. So at the risk of going on any longer, let's take a look at what's in the windshield for this upcoming race week. Racing is basically off this weekend, and as a result, Josh and I will be off next week too. But like NASCAR, we will return the following weekend for an approximate release on April 13th, so get ready for that. But there is, however, racing this weekend. I'm going to tell you what racing you can watch. There's a Super Formula race this weekend from Fuji Speedway. That will be on Sunday, April 4th at 1 a.m. Eastern Time on motorsport.tv, as well as The Race YouTube channel. Just type in The Race, and you'll probably be able to find it. Also on Motorsport TV this weekend is the Bathurst 6 Hour. As well as a bunch of TCR Australia, Trans Am Australia. There's a bunch of racing at Bathurst. It's going to be going on. But the Bathurst 6 Hour will begin at 9 p.m. on Saturday night on Motorsport TV. NASCAR will be back in action at Martinsville Speedway on Friday, April 9th with the Xfinity Series, and on Saturday, April 10th with the Cup Series. Both night races. Martinsville's going to be a night race this year. Those are going to be on FS1, I believe, instead of Big Fox. As Josh mentioned at the beginning of the show, Formula E will be racing in Rome on April 10th and 11th. For rounds 3 and 4 of the 2020 to 2021 World Championship. It's a 2021 World Championship. They didn't race in 2020. On April 18th, finally, it feels like forever. We're waiting forever. The NCT IndyCar Series will finally begin at Barber Motorsports Park, the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama, so we'll probably have something to talk about there. And then, hey, April 18th, Formula 1 comes back for round 2 of the season at Imola. So we're really excited for that. So thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to let us know what you think about the show. Follow us on Twitter at rpeters33, at roller_01, at robinroller, spelled just as it sounds. Don't forget to wear your masks. We're still getting there. I scheduled my COVID vaccine. I'm finally eligible. I successfully scheduled my COVID vaccine. I'm going to be going to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway down here to get my vaccine. So that's a very, very important thing. Hopefully with that vaccine, I'll be able to cover the month of May. We'll see. We'll see if they let me back in a couple of days after I get that vaccine. So for Josh Roller, my name is Rob Peters. Thank you so much for listening this week. And this was the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.